us, but we'll get started because I have, we're teaching at 10 o'clock this morning, but I wanted to make sure, this has gotten so screwed up, this Zoom link and all of that. And I don't know what the heck I was doing wrong, but for some reason, you guys just could never get to my meeting and I could never let you in. So yay, progress today. I think we finally figured it out. So today we're going to talk about, and it's from module 5, and we're going to talk about sound healing for palliative care and hospice. So, and why I feel like this is important, we don't talk about end of life enough. I feel like because we're in this technology world and this medical marvelous world we live in, I feel like if someone has a terminal illness, we push them to fight and fight and fight, right? Which is great. I think if that is appropriate for the situation or for them, but sometimes we don't take the time to just say, I don't know that this is working. Maybe we just need to focus on end of life care instead of pushing for this cure that might not happen. And I feel like a lot of my clients who come in with cancer or other things, they feel this pressure to do everything that their family wants them to do to get better. And it might not actually be what they want to do. And then they end up in a situation at the end of their life that can be really difficult. So I think, and I don't know if either of you have any thoughts about going into hospice or doing any sort of hospital work or anything like that, but I think it's really important to not just help the patient, but also the family, I think, or friends, the loved ones of that person. So just kind of want to just chat today about, and I want you guys to just jump in. This isn't like you have to sit and listen to me talk. This is let's, have a discussion. So, I think for me, and we talk about a lot how frequency and vibration has the ability to take whatever is maybe low vibration within us, raise that vibration, which in turn triggers our body's own healing mechanisms and all of that. When someone's in hospice or, they're at the end of their life, we're not going to be going in there to do sound healing to help them heal or to help them to cure them. That's not going to happen. But what we can do is help take this problem that's right here and maybe bring it out here, right? So when someone is at the end of their life, and I have been honored to be at the end of a lot of people's lives in my family. My mom's a nurse. So when we were kids, and my mom would be the person who would go over to all of my relatives' houses and take care of them. And we're so fortunate that I live in a family where we took care of each other at home as much as we could until we died. And so it's an awful experience, but it's a beautiful experience. And so, but one thing that I've observed is the person who is going through this transition has their own fears and anxieties, but then they also have the fears and anxiety of everybody else around them. So now they have to pretend to be someone or something or feeling a certain way about something sometimes when all they want to do is just be working through their own crap at the end of their life. So I think that having a tool that you could use to help them turn off those feelings, not turn them off, but give a little distance, give a little space, is really important. So I don't think you have to go into a hospice space and bring in every single instrument you have and your gong and but you could bring in your set of crystal singing bowls and set them up in the room. And, I would invite the family in, I would invite friends in because they need that space too. I think when someone is in the hospital or transitioning or sick, it's what we focus on the most, right? Is the sickness and the cure. And I think that's great, but we don't focus enough on tools that they can use to help them relax or to find that space or to help negate the anxiety. Because even if someone has accepted that they're probably not going to recover from something, there's a lot of anxiety there. And I just think everything within a hospital or a hospice house is geared towards medical care, right? And you want that medical care, but there's machines and there's beeping and there's medications and it's not your home and it has to be sterile to a point to keep everybody safe. And I sometimes think that sound healing is that it can warm the space up. It can make a space feel more relaxed and more happy. And I think that it can help everyone kind of relax into that space a little bit better as well. So, I also think that it is great in hospitals for people who are, I have a friend whose brother was in a real bad car accident. And so she just kept bringing a couple singing bowls in. And while she was in visiting him, she'd set him up and she'd just play them. And her brother recovered at a rapid rate, faster than they expected that he would. But also, they noticed that a lot of the other patients on the floor were calmer and that they seemed more at peace, and they were probably healing a little bit faster as well. So I think that same principle applies to a hospice house or a humane society with animals. I think we could go in and play for places like that. So not just hospice houses and palliative care. I think if we look at, okay, so this is a subgroup of people, but you could apply that to all sorts of different groups of people. So, and I think it's just like a chronic illness, right? We focus on that and we focus on that, and it's all we focus about, and it becomes our whole world. And when you're at the end of your life, it is going to be your whole world. But if we could help someone even kind of shut that off for 5, 10, 15 minutes, I mean, think about how amazing that could be for them, because there is a lot of anxiety and sadness and grief and sometimes anger. And when you're dealing with families, I don't know about your guys' families, but my family is complicated. And there's a lot of different personalities and people fighting, and this person doesn't get along. And then when someone is at the end of their life, then we start fighting over their possessions and what we're going to da, 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 da. And that person who is going through that transition doesn't need to deal with any of that crap, right? But they do. They have to deal with it. So I think just kind of really, I think I wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit today, just to open up the possibilities. I think end of life is something that we shy away from because it's scary and it's sad and it's hard, and you have to do family handholding and all of that. But I think it's something that, as sound healers, could be really profound for people. So what do you guys think? Have you guys ever worked with anyone end of life or thought about doing sound in any of those capacities?
I've definitely thought about it.
Mhm.
I think it's something I could really excel at.
For sure.
When I just knowing myself and helping certain friends and family members through end of
Mhm.
life, I have an ability to kind of deal with it in a way that, I don't know, seems odd to some, maybe, that I'm
Mhm.
more okay with it, see it more as a beautiful thing,
For sure.
So I was excited for you to talk about this because I do think there's something special there. And I've been through 2 family member hospice situations.
Mhm.
Um, and it really could help in that moment. Uh, when my grandfather died, everyone comes, right, at the
Yeah.
end. And at one point, we're all standing around him, and he was a really funny guy. And even to the end, he's like, "What are you? Get away from me! Y'all standing around just watching me die." So there was it would be cool to have for a lot of families, like something to kind of break up this moment and kind of ease. Like you said, there's all these different personalities, and people are upset about different things, and
Yeah.
it's just definitely an environment that I think this could be amazing.
For sure. And also to consider, you don't need a ton of instruments or whatever to go in there. I think any shifting is cool, but also you could go into a place like that and set up in a common area and play even in there. It wouldn't even need to be, I don't think, individual patient rooms, although I think that would be powerful in its own way. But I am the same way with you, as you with death. I think my mom was a nurse, so we always grew up very like, this is just how things are, and it's sad and it's whatever, but there are people who need to help through these situations. And so I'm very much like you. I can just kind of compartmentalize that and kind of help work through that. And I have the ability to not take that on too much. I think you have to be able to, you know, shield yourself. I think when you go into a hospice situation, you always want to make sure that you're shielding and grounding yourself. I think we talk about that a lot, but what kind of goes into what you said, you have the ability to process through that. Just be aware that maybe not everybody does. If anybody listens to this recording afterwards, if you don't feel comfortable going to hospice houses, you certainly don't have to. But this is just one arena that I think we don't pay enough attention to, is end of life stuff. And I think that sound healing and meditation and any other tools that you guys have, I mean, it's not just sound, it's taking them through maybe a guided meditation. Or I have a client who just went through her second round of breast cancer, and she is now doing her second round of chemo, and there's just so much anxiety there. What if it doesn't go away this time? What if, all of these worst case scenarios that didn't play out the first time, what if they play out this time? But then also between, once she goes into remission, every 3 months she has to have a scan. So every 3 months we go into this super anxiety space where, oh my gosh, I'm going to get this scan, they're going to tell me I have cancer again. And then it goes through this whole thing. So with a lot of my clients, I'll send them meditations. I'll make them playlists on Spotify or YouTube with different binaural beats or different meditation music that they can listen to while they're having their chemo. I mean, if you had someone in a hospice situation, you could make them playlists that they could play in their room, just to have some background, nice music. You could do that at certain frequencies with those binaural beats and all of those things. So it doesn't just have to be you going into the situation and helping. You can give them tools to use when you're not there. And it will also help the family maybe feel like they have something that they can do to help. So you could send the playlist to the family and say, hey, look, put this music on, when maybe this person is feeling agitated, or, lots of different things. So try to think of ways that you could incorporate the family in helping when you're not there. So something like playlists or doing a meditation together. And I would also encourage you to encourage the families to listen to certain music, or to use aromatherapy, or do meditating on their own, because I think managing the families is just as important, giving them tools, because when that person passes away, they're going to need tools to help them. And if you are in there doing a sound bath and they get relief from that, you could be a place where they go to through their grief to help them process through that afterwards. So, and also you're helping ease that grief of the person who's passing away, because there's grief there too, right? So sound healing isn't just, we talk about it for healing because that's amazing, but we also know it's calming, it reduces anxiety, it helps with the immune system, it helps slow our heart rate, it helps to balance and slow the nervous system, it gets us into those alpha brainwave states. I mean, it does all of these things that we want it to do. So it's not just about healing, it's also about, kind of that keeping us in that calm space where we can talk to each other without that reaction. Because a lot of the times too, when we're in these situations, because everybody's grieving and sad and stressed out, they then start to get in fights within families. And, so there's just so much that surrounds hospice care and death and palliative care. But I think we could be a really cool tool in that space. And the great thing is that hopefully you open up the family's world to a whole new realm of self-care and things that they can then do, leaving that situation to move forward within their own grief. So something to think about there too. If you do decide you maybe want to work in hospice houses, maybe create a program for the family or the spouse or whatever, for them to maybe walk through after this situation happens, and make sure they have your information. And that's not so that they can come to you and you can make money. I mean, that definitely helps, but it's more of just providing that support while they're going through that awful situation, but that support for afterwards. So just consider that if you do decide to go into a hospice situation or something like that, this care or this working with this client, if you do coaching or whatever, could expand if into afterwards, if they decide something like that. So something to consider, that after their loved one passes away, they might want to do sound baths with you, or they might want to do coaching or meditating or something with you. And if you don't do those things, maybe have some people that you could refer out to and say, hey, my friend so and so does grief coaching, and I think that this would be a resource available to you if you feel like you'd like it, and give them that person's information. They can't think sometimes about anything else besides what's going on right in front of them in that room. So just be aware of that, and also be aware that when you do go into a hospice situation you are dealing with a lot of personalities and a lot of stress and a lot of grief and sadness. So just be aware that sometimes when people say things, it's not personal. They're just going through a lot. And we have to understand that as well. But it can be really beautiful. And to help someone transition, I think, is one of the greatest tools, one of the greatest benefits that we can be to someone. And it reminds me a lot of shamanism and kind of the medicine women and men who would help people transition. They drum them into the afterlife. So just something to think about. I don't think we think about these things enough because they are scary to us, but death is a part of, we're all gonna be there, hopefully a long time from now, but we're all gonna be there. So
right. I think it's great that you bring this up, like you said, I never thought about it. Just like I think the whole sound healing, right? You're still like trying to offer something, sound baths, right? Helping someone with anxiety and stress and all those things that we know. Just like never thinking about one, I got very emotional, right? I had like a recent experience. My father-in-law actually passed away like a couple of months ago. And I thought about offering the sound bath for him prior, right? But he had a pacemaker, so I said I don't think it's safe for me to to go that route. But now, but I think the way you bring it up now, just like I think I never thought about it, but just like definitely there was a place for that. But that being said, right, when you mentioned about families and different personalities and how to approach either the place or the families, right? Because just like people might say, "What are you doing? So and so is dying. You're playing ballsy." Just like it's not for everybody, right? So you got to get confronted by some family members say like, "This is not for you. What are you doing here? You don't even know the family." So how to deal with that?
One thing that I would say is you definitely want to go to like the director of the hospice house. That would be my first recommendation, because then what they can do is, if they're like, yes, this sounds amazing, then what they would do is they would almost offer it like a program or a service that they offer. And then I would imagine what they could do is they would offer it to the families. And if they were open to it, then you would go in to do it. So I wouldn't say like, just roam around a hospice place and go into a random room and play some sound. But that would be my recommendation whenever I've thought about doing it, because we have a new hospice house in Sarasota. I would like to have the time to do it, which I don't have right now. But so for me, I would go in and talk with the director or something and say, this is what I offer. And do you think that it would be something that your families and your whatever? And I think they would probably say, especially at this point, sound healing is so much more known out there in the world, but I can imagine that they would say, let's talk about that. That would be my first step. And the other thing is, when you go into a place like that, don't call it sound healing, because again, we're healing them in some way, but I think sound healing in that space, no. So I would call it sound meditation, but even that can be meditation, can sometimes be, when people say meditation, you see this, meditate, these people meditate. So, but you could call it you don't really want to call it sound therapy. That's interesting. I'm going to think on that, but maybe you guys have something in mind too. But I feel like you don't want to call it sound healing. But even a sound bath or a sound relaxation session would probably be good, but definitely don't use the word healing. I think that's triggering for people. And when you're in hospice, you pretty are sure you're not going to heal from whatever it is you got going on. But that would be my first thing. And the other thing is, people are going to get upset because that sound is bubbling up things within them that they maybe are not able to deal with at the moment. Because in those situations, even though someone can see someone in front of them passing away, they still are in denial about it. I think that there are some people who they just can't accept it. This person is going to recover. They can't think about it, even though they're there in front of them. They have shut down all thoughts that this is actually happening. And so I think you just handle those people as delicately as possible. And you just kind of say, I'm not hurting your loved one. I am so sorry for what you're going through. What I am doing here is just helping to relax your loved one or whatever, but if it gets too confrontational, then you just get out of there. I mean, that's not what you want to be there for. But if you go to the director, I feel like in a lot of these facilities, if you go and you become a part of the programs that they offer, then they offer them to the families and then they call you in. So hopefully most of the time, the families will be open to it. You may have one or two people that are like, oh, this is dumb. But then the family requests it more than you just kind of feeling like you're pushing it on them. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you said like you get emotional. I get emotional too, even if it's not my loved one, because I know what those people are going through. And I think you don't want to be standing there sobbing, but just remember, it's okay for us to feel emotions. It's okay for the family to feel emotions. It's okay for the patient to feel emotions. We feel like we have to be these people who stand strong in the storm. And it's nice to have, I think you can do that and still show emotion. So don't be afraid to go into these situations with your empathy out there and with your the type of person you are. If you're a caring person, be that caring person. Those people don't need you to be a stone statue. If you're there doing sound relaxation, then you're there for support. So, again, I don't stand there sobbing, but I can't help if a tear rolls down my face or, because you will feel the emotions of the other people, which is why in those situations, especially, I make sure that my bubble is tight, because I don't want to take in more than I can handle in those situations. And I will take in more than I can handle in those situations. And then I will be in my car sobbing in the parking lot before I have to leave to go home. And you can't do that for very long either. So make sure that if this is work you want to do, that you are protecting yourself and doing the self-care things that you need to do for yourself as well, because that's important also. What made you hesitate in offering sound healing to your father-in-law? Was there anything in particular, or you just felt like maybe you were pushing it on him?
Well, one, because just like he had the pacemaker, and I think right, we covered that on lesson 1. And there's some couple of things that we, you got to be careful with some of the patients that don't.
Pacemaker is only for putting bowls on the body. But if someone has a pacemaker, they can 100% have a group sound bath.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So don't worry about, they walk around being bombarded by vibration all day. So the pacemaker is just for bowls on the body. But I hear you, especially if someone is in a state where their body is taxed. It could be putting
it was more. before he was sent to the hospital. He was at home, and we would go there like to visit him and to stay with him. So my wife said, listen, what you should play the bowls to my father. And I said, no, I think it's a great idea. So then I went to my book, and I'm like, let me see here. I don't know if I can. And then just because it's so close to me, I didn't want to be responsible if something went wrong.
Okay.
Like,
understood.
Now his condition is worse. Now, people, right? They
yeah
probably be blaming me because or whatever I did. So I tried to play cautious, and I didn't do
Mhm.
that, and then when you just like, when he was in the hospital, we were able to get in and say, pay our last respects. And at that moment, I didn't have my balls with me. It was just like,
Yeah.
very like reacting to the emotions, and it
Yeah.
was just very much close family. My mother-in-law, my wife, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, just me there, and so one, I didn't even think about it, to be honest. And two, just I
Mhm.
didn't know if I could. Okay, guys, just now I'm gonna go sit over here and play the balls, and I don't know. So just like I need to. I think it's a great idea, to be honest.
Well, yeah, and I think that this just goes, I think when it's personal to you like that, it's totally different, right? So in that instance, it was very personal to you. But what I
Right.
would say is that when you do go into these places, you may have a family member who says, "Oh my gosh, I think you're just making this person worse, blah, blah, blah." That is when you need to be armed with your information about what this practice does.
Mhm.
I think that's when we not educate them like, well, this is what this is doing, and I am not making it worse. But I think in those moments, we can then say, what I can tell you is that sound and vibration does this to the body. And it actually is putting this person into a more relaxed state, or however it is that you want to present that.
Mhm.
But I think in those situations, it's a little bit of confidence, because that
Right.
what you're doing isn't making it worse, right? I mean, they can believe that it's making it worse, but there's not a lot that we can do with sound that's going to make anything worse for anyone, right? So,
Right.
you're not making it worse. And not that it's our job, but if we're going to go into those places, it is then our responsibility to educate a little. So if somebody is upset, just kind of hit, I totally hear what you're saying. I understand. Um, if you would allow me to explain how this is actually helping. And then maybe it's a space where you educate them a little bit, and now they can consider something different. But I think in those situations, they just don't want anything to hurt their loved one more than they're
Right.
already hurting. But at the same time, if they're in that situation, they're not going to be hurting any more than they're already hurting. So I think it's just, you have to know that if you're going to go into a hospice situation or something like that, you are probably going to be dealing with a lot of family dynamics and a lot of different personalities. And I definitely would have a plan in place as to how you might want to deal with that. And I'm not saying write out scripts or whatever, but I think it is something to consider before you go into this work. Is, if I do have someone confront me like this, or I do have a family member who is, how am I going to handle that for their highest good and for me too? So it's definitely something to think about. And again, not have scripts or whatever, but I make little bullet point lists when I'm first starting out, so I can get my thoughts straight, so that if I do go into those situations, I kind of have it in my head how I want to organize the thoughts there and everything, because it can be a lot. And people do say things that they don't mean when they're sad or grieving. So yeah, for sure. I think sometimes when we are too close to something, it is not for us to offer those things to the people that are in, because we are also, I feel like when I sit down in front of my bowls, I want to make sure I'm in a centered space. And if I had a loved one that was in hospice, I'm not sure that I could sit down behind my bowls and feel that way. So I would probably call somebody else in if it was my own family member. So I think maybe that was just how the universe went for you, Alex. And I think that was okay. So what do you think about that, Kelly?
Well, my condolences to you, Alex. I also lost my father-in-law in March,
Oh my goodness, you
and
guys.
something similar, happened. But so I've been kind of helping some family members through this. But yeah, I haven't used the bowls in this space, and it's
Yeah,
just, I think you're right. I think you can be too close.
for sure.
I don't know.
And if you're not feeling it, then don't force it, I think, for sure. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Callie, my condolences to you too.
Oh,
Thank
you
you.
guys. Wow.
Yeah, it's just like, well,
Well, and the good thing is that the practice can help you though. It can
Right.
help you. The bowl, playing the bowls, even if you're not able to play them for someone else at this moment, play them for you because
Right.
you know that the bowls will help you.
Right.
So don't stop
But
playing
that being,
altogether. But
but that being said, just like I'm just trying to find the right moment. Just like, you know, I want to play for my mom-in-law, right? Because she's been gone through a lot. Just like knowing that, even though she doesn't show much, but I know she's stressed and there's anxiety. I mean, he was the patriarch of the family, just like, you know, and then, you know, I mean, they were married for like 50 years, right? So just like, you know, so
um,
there's a lot of stuff that she needs to deal with. So I'm just trying to find the right moment to offer her, you know.
for sure. And maybe you could make not a ceremony out of it, but maybe if there's a milestone that's coming up or something that, or honor her in some way, if it's her birthday, or,
Mhm.
you know, if there was a certain date that meant something to them, maybe you guys could make a ceremony out of it where you have dinner or you do other things and you pamper her. And then one of the ways that you care for her is a sound bath. So maybe
Mm.
you could make an event out of it instead of, oh, you're here, let's do a sound bath. I mean,
Right.
maybe you could present it in that way where we want to give you a day of self-care. And here are some of the things that we would like to do to help you because we feel like you've gone through a lot. And we just really want you to know we care about you and whatever. So maybe you could even present it in that way. So it's not just a sound bath plunked into the middle of a day.
Right, right.
You could make a ceremony out of it or do a meditation, have her, I don't know if she meditates or whatever, but whatever things it is that you guys do that are special, maybe you make it a special day and that includes a sound bath. So
Mhm.
it's not so, you know, this is what you're here for, sort of
Right.
thing.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think people who are grieving, I think sometimes we don't know what to say, right? We don't want to say the wrong things and people don't want to hear I'm sorry. I feel like when people are grieving, whenever you say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." I know for me, I'm like, sorry, it's nice. Thank you for saying that, but you're sorry, you know. Sometimes sorry can actually irritate people when they've lost someone. So I think you know, some people tend to push away from the person who's grieving because they don't know what to say and they don't know how to deal with their grief. So I think if we could say, we know you've been going through a tough time and we'd like to honor you, you know, I think that's kind of supporting that grief and saying, we see you and we know you're going through something and we're here to support you. And I think that's kind of beautiful. So, and this just goes into that care after someone passes away, right? So, you know, the hospice houses are amazing because they provide the families with so much support and so much information, and they take so many burdens off of their shoulders as far as that goes. But then when that person passes away, that support is gone. Hospice doesn't continue to support you. I mean, they have things that they can help you with certain things, but their role with you is gone. And I think a lot of people need a different support in some way afterwards. So I think if you could help in that in any way, that would be really special. So
Yeah. This is a great idea. You know, what made you think about introducing that to, you know, again, because we always saw like sound healing, you gotta do this, and what made you think like to like bring up this subject and just like, you know, have that, you know, I think it's a great idea actually, but
I think because death has always been a part of my life in some way, and not like this, oh, it's a huge part of my life. But with my mom being a nurse, we didn't shy away from those things. My mom she's a very matter of fact person, and this is just how it is, and this is just life. And, you know, so I think for me, I have had that in my life. So I understand the ins and outs of emotions and how that works. And I think sound healing, we talk about where everybody wants it to be this beautiful Zen group experience, but it doesn't just have to be that. And I think, I don't know, I think it's just necessary. And I think for me, especially with COVID, we all know people who, you know, people have just been embroiled in people passing away and not having a place for that grief or a place to put that. So I think it's just been something I've been thinking about for a while. And as soon as I got into sound healing, my very first thought was, oh, I should get into a hospice house or something like that. So I think it's just your frame of reference, right? My frame of experience and references is maybe different than someone else's. So for me, going into a hospice house doesn't scare me at all. It's something that I have seen before, but I also understand that it can be really intimidating and really scary if you've never been into one of those places before,
Right.
because it's sad in there and it's hard and it's, you can feel it as soon as you walk in the door, the energy. But
Right.
I also feel like if I could shift the energy, even for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and shine a light in there that hasn't been shown in there for a while, that's pretty magical. And the great thing is, your sound isn't being just boom in this one room. You're going to affect everyone in that facility by going in there and playing your sound. And I just think that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. I think it's just maybe that portion of life has been a part of my life, maybe more.
No, definitely. And I've seen them, I think for the past maybe a year or so, or even longer, but just I'm noticed just like for the past maybe a year, I've seen this shift, right? That people like trying new things, new healing modalities, right?
Mhm.
Just like I also am a Reiki master, so I was just like like one couple of weeks ago, just looking online, trying to find places that offer Reiki, so I could just approach them, and I was fascinated just to see that there was some hospitals in my area here, right here in New Jersey, that were actually hiring people to bring Reiki to the hospitals, right? So I
For
think now
sure.
it's like just they opening up to these new modalities, if you will, to just like offer to the patients, and so it's fascinating how everything's kind of shifting to new things of healing and grieving and reducing anxiety and you see more and more and more. And I was just wondering why maybe you think to offer.
Yeah, and I think all of that. I think all of it. I think COVID has made us look at things in a completely different way, right? Which is why I don't know about you guys, but I had signed up for sound healing just before COVID, but it really, I think it just came about at the time when we all needed it the most, right? So, but I also think, hospitals, that's a really cool, we had someone in our training, maybe Houston, maybe Palm Springs, where they're bringing Reiki people in to actually do Reiki like on the IV bags and like on the antibiotic bags. They do Reiki on them. So it's really Reiki, especially, I think, is that first step in the door, right? It's that foot in the door, and then we're going to start seeing more of these other modalities. So Reiki is one of the ways, if hospital work is something you feel like you would be interested in, Reiki would be a great way to get your foot in the door to a facility like hospice, even, or the hospital, because I think you don't have to bring any equipment for Reiki. They don't see you showing up with all these things that they're looking at and going, what the heck is this person coming in here with? But I think that Reiki is something, for some reason, that people can wrap their heads around and like accept, even people who maybe don't normally. I don't know. It feels like where other people go, oh, that's woo woo. They're like, oh, Reiki. My neighbor does Reiki, and my gardener does Reiki, and my da, da, da. So I think everybody does Reiki right now. So I think we are able to accept that into our brains a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, we have heard from people all over the country that they are noticing that their Reiki friends or whatever are being asked to go into the hospitals and things. So hopefully we're seeing a shift in all of that. But Reiki and sound together, I mean, oh my gosh, you could whammy their brains right out if you went in and said, oh, I do sound and Reiki and, would like to offer this. And even in the hospice houses, they might have you just set up in a common area and have people come in to see you or whatever. But, even in a hospital setting, that would be really cool to go in and do some Reiki on some people. And again, it opens the door, right? We're not trying to whammy people over the head with this, you should do sound healing. But I think we're trying to open people's minds to the idea that there is other ways to heal out there besides just medicine. And, I think we've convinced ourselves, I've talked about this before, Dr. Joe Dispenza, kind of believes that we have actually turned off our body's own ability to heal we have actually wired ourselves past that, because we have been programmed that you have to go see a doctor and you have to take medication to get better. And he believes that that way of thinking has actually turned off our own, like we basically just short circuited that, because we now have this belief that we have to have doctors to diagnose us for us to get better. And so we have to start changing that wiring, right? That we don't need a doctor. I know that we need doctors sometimes, but we don't need a doctor all the time to diagnose us, and we don't need medication to get better all the time. And I think we have to, sound healing and Reiki helps open us up to that possibility, right? So I think the more we open up people to that possibility, the more open they're going to be to the things that we have to offer. So yeah. And if you don't have a hospice house in your area, I'm sure that there is some place, memory care or some sort of nursing home facility that is set up as a hospice facility in some way. So, I mean, that's another area, not even just palliative or hospice care, but nursing homes. There are so many people in nursing homes who never get visitors. Do you know how many? My mom worked in a nursing home for years and years and years. The families just don't come to visit. They either don't have the time, or they don't live in the area, or they just don't because it's too hard. You could, I mean, we could shift. Nursing homes are the saddest places the whole universe. And, you know, even something like that, if elder care is something that you're interested in, I think that that would be so beautiful. I think my grandmother was 94 when she died. She died at home. I had, you know, kind of just started into all of this, and she loved it when I would come over and play the bowls. It just made her so happy. And, you know, they're just in such a different space than we are. So even thinking about that too, not just limiting it to, because there are people that are passing away in nursing homes as well. And the isolation after COVID has really hurt them a lot, because people couldn't come visit, they wouldn't come visit, and it just made that 10 times worse. So that's another arena that we could have a whole conversation about, would be nursing homes. So, you know, elder care in general, I think, is something that we should approach better in this country as well, because people get old and we shove them in a nursing home, and I get that they need to be in there sometimes, but sometimes it feels like we just shove them in there just as a little waiting room until they're ready to go. And I think we should be better about that.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. No, I definitely open up now some ideas here. And
Yeah. And I think we need to start thinking out of the box here. You know, there's so many ways
Right.
that this sound healing can be incorporated into so many different facets of life. And it doesn't have to just be the pretty, shiny,
Mm,
you know, Zen things. Sometimes it's the heavy, really sad things, where we can really come in and help to transform. And just, it's not even fixing, it's just shifting the way that energy flows within that
right,
room and within
right.
that person and within the family, just to maybe smooth it out and just get things flowing a little bit easier for everyone.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, just like that reminds me, like, no, um, I'm a photographer also, besides being a Reiki master and like everybody else, right? So years ago, I was working with a photographer, and was something that he had a program, right, for kids with cerebral palsy.
Mhm.
We used to go to those schools and just like, and believe it or not, don't teach photography, right? Not teach photography, but just like bring photography to them. And we'd be amazed by just like now how you get in the room and you see the kids just like now sort of disconnected, and we came in bringing cameras and with the idea of like taking them on those field trips, and they'll be lighting up and they'll be like so alive, right? So now just trying to mention about nursing homes and elder care. There's a whole kids, right, people with
Yeah.
some mental disabilities that just like we used to take them to a farm, and then they just having them connect with the horses and animals, and they'll be like
Sure.
different person. So
Yeah.
I'm
And
sure
you could hook up with someone who does equine therapy and do sound therapy along, you know, you could hook up with all sorts of different people doing different things and do your sound healing along with the therapies that they're doing. I mean, there's so
Right.
much. And even the kid aspect, there are lots of kids dealing with really heavy medical conditions,
Mm.
even doing sound baths for kids. And if they're healthy enough doing interactive sound, you could go into Children's Hospital and do a workshop on sound and have them play the drums and mess around with because it's going to lift their spirits. It's going to change their energy. It's going to help them relax and feel happier. Kids have a way of doing that, right?
Right.
They're not feeling good and they go, "Ooh, a toy." And they're like, "Yes." And even if it doesn't make them feel better, again, it shifts that focus from everything is right here to maybe now it's out here a little bit and I have a little perspective on that. And now I can take a little step back and maybe take a deep breath because I have some perspective or some space on that issue. You know, working with kids, I think you have to be more interactive and I think it has to be shorter. Kids only have, you know, so much attention span, but I think you know, working with kids, working with the elderly, working with, I mean, there's so many avenues we can go down here, especially with for the unhealthy populations
Right.
of those places. So yeah, good.
Thank you so much. It was very, very nice.
Good.
connect
Anything
with
else you guys want to talk about? Anything else you've come up against in the modules that are kind of throwing you off, or anything you feel like you need answered, or anything, Miss Kelly? Anything?
No. Are we supposed to finish the modules? I got a little confused on Bill's call the other day.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we still want, so basically we had a level 1 and a level 2, and level 2 was kind of what you guys are in now, where we're mastering instruments and we're diving deeper into those things. And then we were doing a class where we were doing just Himalayan bowls on the body, and that was beautiful. But we felt like everybody was like, okay, you're doing Himalayan bowls, but what about everything else in a private sound session? So then we thought, okay, well, maybe we need to set this up more where level 1 is group sound bass and level 2 just covers the private stuff. And then we can also do tuning forks, and we can do handheld gongs, and we can do the bowls on the body, and we could do all of it. So that kind of morphed into level 2. And now whatever level you guys were doing has been pushed to level 3. So the level 3 is master. So we do want you to finish the modules, and there's like different quizzes, and we have some different questions and things we want to ask you just to make sure that you guys are reading the material and working through the modules. But yeah, I mean, the goal is we would like you to finish. You know, there's probably going to be some things in there, Kelly, that don't resonate with you. Like if you don't care about drums, you're probably not going to dive into the drum module. I would like you to read through it just to, if somebody's going to ask you a question about drums, maybe it would be nice to know. But I don't expect that you're going to dive into that and know everything there is to know about drums, but skim the module and just, you know, read through it. But yeah, the goal is to complete the modules, and we're hoping that these calls twice a week, because Bill's going to do one on Wednesday nights, I'm doing Thursday mornings, that we can help you guys work through the modules if you need some help, but also kind of keep you motivated. Like, okay, next week we're talking about something from module 6 and then module 7. So I'm kind of hoping that like, then that makes you kind of go, oh, I haven't done module 6 yet. Let me dive into that before the call. And we're kind of hoping that that provides a little more support and motivation, but also we're hoping that as more and more people log into these calls, that now maybe you and Alex can have a conversation and you guys go, oh, I like this. Let's chat outside of here. And now you guys have support for each other, because we want you guys to have community support, not just support from me and Bill or whoever. We want you to have support from as many people as we can get you in front of. So, so that's kind of the point of the calls, is we were hearing that a lot of people were having trouble working through that level 3 on their own, because it's just online and you're just out there kind of floating in the world. So yeah, we would like you to finish the modules. And you don't have to log on to the calls if you don't want to, but they are definitely here if you feel like you want to.
Yeah, I love the calls, and
Yeah,
it does. It keeps
good.
you motivated and thinking about, you know, for a week, what, you know, some of these topics,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
they play in.
exactly. And now that you two have logged into my link and we know that it's working, I will be able to see you guys on Thursday morning if you log in. It was starting to become one of those things where when it happened, I was like, this is a joke now. This is like, I don't know, we're to the point where this is so ridiculous. I think maybe I should just give it up. But thankfully we persevered and here we are. So I am so sorry about all of that.
It's all
It
good.
really is
No
just
worries.
ridiculous in how just ridiculous it became. So yeah, but with that being said, if you guys ever have any questions or you need to reach out to me anytime. And text messaging is best because if I have a client during the day, I can answer sometimes in between clients where I sometimes can't call. But just because we're doing these calls doesn't mean you can't reach out to us. So reach out.
I don't think you have your phone. I usually I send you via Messenger.
Oh yeah, I'll send you my,
Yeah.
I can give it to you right now. It's 941
941
920
mm-hmm.
2881.
2881. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll text you. Why don't you text me? That way
Yeah.
I can have your number because I
Yeah.
don't think I have yours either. I had to messenger you the other day because I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
crap,
yeah.
I don't have Alex's number. I just have his email and his messenger. So yeah, but reach out
Yeah,
anytime.
feel free to give my information to Kelly too. Just like like you said, I think just we need to somehow like connect and help
sure.
each other, just like have questions and
Yeah, and maybe if
Yeah.
everybody's open to it, we could make a student directory where it has everybody's,
Yeah.
if they want their phone number or just their email or whatever. That way, if anybody sees you on a call and they're like, oh, I want to talk more with this person about that,
Right.
but they don't want to do it in a group because sometimes that's hard. That way, everybody could hook up together too. So, I mean, not everybody wants a community, but we're trying to create a community for anybody that does. And just to keep you motivated, it is hard to learn online. It's hard to learn online, especially when you
Right.
feel like you're just floating out there to sea. So we're hoping that this makes it feel like you guys aren't floating out there so much.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you so much.
yeah, well, good. Are you guys up to good things this weekend?
Yes.
Weather, looking good here. So might just venture out and be outside and just
Now that you have that nice weather in New Jersey.
yeah, finally.
Yeah, we're hotter than the hinges of Hades in Florida. And we're
Yeah.
hotter than the hinges of Hades. And then they said on the weather, we're going to have a heat wave next week. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? We're having a heat wave already. I don't understand this heat wave on top of heat wave stuff. So yeah, good. What about you, Miss Kelly? What you up to?
So right after this call, I do food bank.
Oh,
I work at a food bank,
cool.
or volunteer. So we pack on Saturdays, we pack all these boxes, and then on Thursdays I deliver to families.
Aw,
I
that's
load up my car
wonderful.
like as much as I can get in. I usually take one of my kids and we drive around and
I
deliver all
love
these.
it.
It's really cool.
You should take, if you have any Himalayan bowls, when you load up all that food, chime those Himalayan bowls in your car and really put some intention into that food. That would be really cool.
Oh, that's
wow.
such a good idea.
Yeah, you could actually bring it in and bless all the food that everybody's going to take with them. But I think putting some intention and some sound into that food would be amazing.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That's so cool.
Hey, listen, I have started finding ways to incorporate sound into everything I do. I feel like in my life, it had to be so separate for a while from my spa job that I had. And then I would go and do this sound healing stuff. And so now I'm like, no, I'm incorporating it into everything. And so now I just incorporate, I think in my head, how could I incorporate sound into this? How could I do, so I have started finding ways to incorporate it into
So cool.
everything I do, because I think it's really, it helps me, but it also helps the world. So
sure.
yeah. So Himalayan
beautiful.
bowls right up.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Hey, it's all we can do, right?
I
Let's
know.
just try. It's all we can do. Well,
Yeah.
good. Have fun at the food bank.
Yeah.
Alex, have fun whatever you guys are up to. And thanks
Yeah.
for logging on today.
Thank you. Have a
Okay.
great
Thank you, Becky.
All
All right. We'll see you
Yes.
later.
Have a good
Bye,
day.
Alex.
Bye.
Bye, Kelly. Take
Bye.
care.